For decades, the narrative of global power has been dominated by a single nation. The United States stood as the world's unrivaled superpower, a beacon of influence and strength. Its reach extended across continents, shaping international policy and driving global trends. Economically, with its innovative spirit and vast resources, militarily, projecting power across the globe, and culturally, captivating the world with its entertainment and ideals. But today, the landscape is shifting. A new force is rising in the East, challenging the established order and demanding a seat at the table. China, a nation undergoing a transformation of unprecedented scale and speed. Once poor and isolated, struggling with poverty and internal strife, China was largely absent from the global stage. But now China is an economic giant, a manufacturing powerhouse and a technological innovator. Its cities are futuristic showcases of modern architecture and technological advancement, and its tech sector is booming, rivaling Silicon Valley. Hundreds of millions have been lifted out of poverty, experiencing a level of prosperity unimaginable just a few decades ago. This newfound wealth is fueling a confident new middle class, eager to consume, travel and shape their own destinies. China's ambitions now reach far beyond its borders, with initiatives like the Belt and Road reshaping infrastructure and trade routes across Asia, Africa and beyond, reshaping the global landscape. The US-China relationship has become the defining issue in international affairs, a complex interplay of cooperation and competition that will determine the course of the 21st century. Is China set to overtake America as the world's leading superpower? The answer to that question will shape the 21st century, influencing everything from global trade and security to technological innovation and cultural exchange. This rivalry isn't just about numbers, about GDP growth and trade balances. It's about security, about competing visions for the future, about values, and ultimately about the future world order. We'll explore the main arenas of competition, examining the key areas where the US and China are vying for influence. Global influence, from trade agreements to military alliances, economic rivalry with its tariffs, trade wars, and technological competition, and the clash of political systems, the fundamental differences between democracy and authoritarianism. Along the way, we'll hear from leading thinkers, experts who have dedicated their careers to understanding this complex relationship, like Graham Allison, Henry Kissinger, and Francis Fukuyama. Their insights reveal both the dangers and opportunities ahead, offering valuable perspectives on the challenges and potential pathways forward. This isn't just a story of two governments, of political maneuvering and diplomatic negotiations. It's a story that touches us all, impacting our lives in ways we may not even realize. From the products we buy, manufactured in global supply chains that connect the world, to the security of our world, threatened by geopolitical tensions, the outcome of this rivalry matters, shaping the future for generations to come. Let's dive in and see what's at stake, exploring the complexities of this defining relationship and understanding its profound implications for the world. The first battleground in this unfolding drama is geopolitics. It's the stage upon which nations compete, collaborate, and sometimes clash. It represents the global contest for power, influence, and the ability to shape the international landscape to one's advantage. This is a game played on a grand scale with very high stakes. For decades, the US has led a system of alliances and international institutions, a network designed to promote stability and cooperation. These institutions were designed to keep the peace, foster economic growth, and address global challenges through collective action. Now, a new player has emerged, and China is building its own network of partnerships and initiatives. This network is challenging the old order, presenting an alternative vision for global governance and international relations. Nowhere is this competition clearer or more fraught with risk than in the South China Sea. Here, China's expansive territorial claims and rapid military buildup have alarmed its neighbors, who depend on free passage through these waters, and the US, which has treaty obligations in the region. In response, the US Navy regularly asserts freedom of navigation, sending warships through the contested waters. These operations are meant to signal that the US does not recognize China's claims, but they also lead to tense standoffs and raise the risk of miscalculation. Beyond military posturing, China's Belt and Road Initiative is another key front in this geopolitical competition. This ambitious project is building infrastructure across continents, from railways and ports to energy pipelines, dramatically expanding Beijing's economic and political reach. However, critics warn that countries taking Chinese loans risk falling under Beijing's sway, becoming economically dependent and politically aligned with China's interests. This is a new kind of empire, one that relies less on military conquest and more on economic influence. It's built with money, investment and trade, rather than armies and battleships. The struggle in this new world order isn't just about territory or resources. It's fundamentally about who gets to set the rules, norms and standards that govern international relations and global affairs. The US traditionally promotes international law, democratic values, and human rights as the foundation for a stable and just world order. In contrast, China emphasizes sovereignty, non-interference in internal affairs, and a more multipolar world. And as China's economic and political power grows, it's actively working to reshape global institutions, from the World Health Organization to the United Nations, to reflect its own interests and priorities. The world is watching this great power competition with growing anxiety. The fundamental question is this: will the future be shaped by universal values, shared principles and international cooperation, or will it be determined by the narrow interests of the most powerful nations? The answer to that question will ultimately define the new world order and determine the fate of global peace and prosperity. The US-China economic relationship is both vital and fraught with tension. For years, American companies moved production to China, benefiting both economies. But the massive US trade deficit and loss of manufacturing jobs have fueled resentment. Washington accuses Beijing of unfair practices, currency manipulation, market barriers, and intellectual property theft. The tech race is now front and center. Whoever leads in AI, 5G, and quantum computing will shape the future. The US has cracked down on Chinese tech giants like Huawei, citing security concerns. This tech war is splitting the global economy, forcing countries to pick sides. The era of easy cooperation is over. Economic rivalry is the new normal. The stakes are enormous. Jobs, innovation, and global leadership hang in the balance. As the world's two largest economies decouple, the ripple effects will be felt everywhere. The economic battlefield is now a fight for the future. At the heart of this complex and multifaceted rivalry lies a fundamental clash of values and deeply contrasting political systems. It's a competition not just for resources or influence, but for the very soul of global order. The US champions democracy, a system built on the cornerstones of individual freedoms, where citizens have the right to choose their leaders and express their opinions without fear. Central to this system is the rule of law, ensuring that everyone, including the government, is accountable under a transparent and impartial legal framework. China, on the other hand, operates as an authoritarian state, firmly ruled by the Communist Party, which maintains a tight grip on power and decision-making processes. This system involves tight control over society, encompassing everything from media and internet access to freedom of assembly, and exhibits little tolerance for dissent or opposition. These fundamental differences in governance and ideology fuel deep disagreements, especially on issues related to human rights, from the treatment of ethnic minorities in Xinjiang to the erosion of democratic freedoms in Hong Kong. The US and its allies consistently criticize China's human rights record, raising concerns about abuses and calling for greater respect for fundamental freedoms. Beijing, however, vehemently rejects these criticisms, dismissing them as unwarranted interference in its internal affairs and accusing the West of hypocrisy. This isn't just a philosophical debate confined to academic circles. It's a high-stakes contest over which model of governance and societal organization will ultimately shape the future of the international order. China's remarkable economic success, achieved without embracing political freedom, increasingly appeals to some leaders worldwide, particularly in developing nations seeking rapid economic growth. The US and its allies fear that China is actively exporting its authoritarian model, thereby challenging the global appeal and perceived superiority of democratic values and institutions. The rivalry between the US and China is about more than just geopolitical power and economic dominance. It's fundamentally about the competing ideas and values that will ultimately define the future of global governance and international norms. Which system, democracy or authoritarianism, will prove more resilient, adaptable, and ultimately more attractive in the long run, shaping the choices of nations and the lives of billions? The answer to that question could profoundly reshape the world as we know it, ushering in a new era of international relations and global order. Power isn't just about armies or money, it's also about attraction. For decades, American culture, values, and brands inspired the world. China is now investing heavily in soft power, opening Confucius Institutes and expanding its global media presence. Beijing wants to be seen as a responsible leader, not a threat. But China's authoritarian image and censorship often undermine its efforts. While traditional culture draws interest, its political system sparks suspicion. China's sharp power, using disinformation and economic leverage, has triggered backlash in many democracies. Winning hearts and minds is proving harder than building skyscrapers. The contest for global influence is as much about trust as it is about strength. In the end, soft power may be the hardest to wield. To understand the risks, Harvard's Graham Allison offers a warning from history. The Thucydides trap. When a rising power threatens an established one, war often follows. Allison found that in most such cases over the past 500 years, conflict erupted. The US-China rivalry fits this dangerous pattern. Flashpoints like Taiwan or the South China Sea could easily spiral out of control. Allison argues that war isn't inevitable, but avoiding it requires careful management and cooperation on shared challenges. Clear communication and restraint are essential. The goal? Intense but peaceful rivalry, not catastrophe. History's lesson is stark. The stakes could not be higher. Will leaders heed the warning or repeat the mistakes of the past? Henry Kissinger, architect of US-China relations, urges a return to balance of power. He warns that today's rivalry is more dangerous than the Cold War, thanks to technology and economic interdependence. Kissinger believes both nations must accept each other's core interests and avoid trying to change one another. Endless confrontation is a recipe for disaster. Instead, the US and China must manage their competition, setting clear red lines and maintaining constant dialogue. Kissinger's vision isn't friendship but stable coexistence. The challenge: can leaders rise above suspicion and domestic politics to build a workable world order? The alternative, he warns, is too terrible to contemplate. Balance, not dominance, is the only path to peace. Francis Fukuyama once argued that liberal democracy was the final form of government. China's rise has challenged that idea, showing that prosperity and technological progress are possible without political freedom. The China model appeals to authoritarian leaders worldwide. Fukuyama now sees the contest as one between accountable, adaptable democracies and rigid, unchecked authoritarianism. China's system can mobilize resources quickly but lacks mechanisms to correct bad leadership. In democracies, leaders can be voted out. In China, mistakes at the top can go unchallenged. Fukuyama believes democracy's self-correcting nature will ultimately prove more resilient. The global contest isn't over, it's entering a new phase. Which model will win out remains an open question. The answer will shape the future of governance everywhere. The US-China rivalry isn't just a headline, it affects us all. It shapes the price of goods, the security of our data, and the technologies we use. Tensions can disrupt supply chains, slow progress on global challenges, and force countries to pick sides. The choices made by leaders and citizens will determine whether the 21st century is defined by conflict or cooperation. The stakes are nothing less than the future of peace and prosperity. Managing this rivalry wisely is one of humanity's greatest challenges. The outcome will touch every life on the planet. That's why this story matters to everyone.